Just when you thought things couldn't get possibly any worse, surprise motherfucker, they do. You survived the plagues, you dodged the witch trials, you somehow haven't been tortured yet. But now, Mother Nature herself decides to throw hands. She just woke up one day and decided, nah, I hate these motherfuckers. Welcome to the Little Ice Age, where crops failed, people starved, and if you weren't already miserable, you were about to be. But don't worry, freezing to death wasn't the only way to go. War was constant, famine turned people into, well, let's just say dinner option got a little weird. And if you were lucky enough to be born a woman, congratulations! Childbirth was a 50-50 deathmatch. So buckle up, because we are driving headfirst into the real nightmare fuel of the past. Worst era to live in, number 5. The Little Ice Age. Winter was always coming. Starting around the 1300s, Europe got really cold. Crops wouldn't grow, people froze to death, and entire towns were abandoned. The winters were so brutal that people would huddle together in their homes and hope they would live to see spring. No central heating, no thermal blankets, just layers of whatever fabric you could find. And when that wasn't enough, people just died. It was like the world was giving everyone the cold shoulder. Literally, rivers froze, so essential supplies couldn't be shipped, and animals that would normally provide food or labor couldn't survive the harsh winter. Even fishing, a crucial food source, became nearly impossible as rivers and lakes froze over. So, have you ever complained about your heating bill in the winter? Now imagine not having a heat at all and hoping you don't become a human popsicle. Worst era to live in, number 4. Constant war. Literally, you can't catch a break. The 14th century was a parade of wars, because what else do you do when you're hungry and disease-ridden? The biggest hit of the century was the 100 Years' War between England and France. It lasted 116 years. Yeah, historians really dropped the ball on that one. Villages were pillaged, crops were burned, and armies didn't care if you were a combatant or just trying to grow a carrot in peace. Oh, and fun fact? Back then, the concept of civilian casualties wasn't a thing. If you were in a wrong place at the wrong time, too bad. The men were conscripted, and women? Well, let's just say armies didn't exactly respect human rights. If you think your commute is bad, try getting to work while dodging swords-wielding soldiers, burning everything in sight. The war wasn't just between soldiers. Civilian populations were often targeted in raids as well. There was a concept called chevauchée. It was military campaigns where soldiers would march through enemy territory, burning everything in their path. This wasn't just about land, it was about crushing the enemy by destroying their food and supplies. Food, you say? What's that? Before Uber Eats, there was the Great Famine of 1315 to 1317. And let me tell you something. Nobody was dining out. Thanks to a series of heavy rains, crops were ruined for years, leaving people to, starve. They tried everything. Roots, grass, tree barks, and when the grass started running low, yep, cannibalism. People were literally eating their neighbors. By that time, you wouldn't just be hungry, you would be living in fear that the next knock on your door might be someone looking for dinner. And guess who's on the menu? The famine wasn't just a short inconvenience. It wiped out entire villages, and those who survived were left traumatized with nothing to look forward to but more hunger. In some areas, people resorted to eating animals they wouldn't normally touch. Dogs, cats, and even birds. There were even rumors of people digging up graves and eating the corpse. Like, bro, what the f...
And his name is John!
Medicine was basically guesswork. With leeches. Got a headache? Here, have a leech. Feeling a little weak? More leeches. Can't get it up for your missus? Here, pop more. The medical professionals of 14th century were about as qualified as that one friend who swears vaping is healthier than cigarettes. They believed in 4 rumors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. And balancing them was the key to health. Their solution? Bloodletting. So yeah, feeling sick? Let's just drain some blood out of you, because nothing says get better like becoming anemic. And if you were really unlucky, then you just might get a nice hole drilled into your skull and let out the evil spirits. Fun fact, it never worked. It's like going to a mechanics for your flat tire and they just tell you to change your engine. People bought it. Honestly, I would just take cancer over medieval doctor any day. In addition to leeches and bloodletting, people use a wide variety of questionable treatments. One particularly disgusting cure for the plague involved mixing human poop with vinegar and rubbing it on the infected. Unsurprisingly, that only made things worse. And doctors wore these long, creepy bird-like masks filled with herbs to purify the air. If you saw one of these guys coming towards you, things were already bad. And let's be real, their treatments usually just sped up the dying process. The Black Death, humanity's biggest wipeout. Between 1347 and 1351, it killed up to 200 million people in Europe only. That's half the population gone faster than your battery life on an old iPhone. But what made it so terrifying? Well, one day you're fine, the next day you've got boils the size of a golf ball, and within days you are dead. And get this, people thought it was caused by bad air or God's wrath. Instead of discovering that it was rats and fleas, people were like, oh yeah, let's burn incense, that will fix it. Imagine you're walking through a town and instead of people dodging puddles, they're dodging bodies. It wasn't just about dodging bodies. The streets were filled with sound of wailing and people burning their dead. Entire towns were wiped out in a matter of weeks. And some people didn't even wait for death. Many would lock themselves in their home and refuse to come out, essentially giving up hope. And there were people known as flagellants, people who believed that whipping themselves could appease God's wrath and stop the plague. They would just march through towns, self-inflicting brutal wounds, hoping it would stop the death around them. So was the 14th century the worst era to be alive? Absolutely. Between the Black Death, brutal wars, famine, freezing cold winters, and the church breathing down on your neck, life was short, painful, and terrifying. Every day was a gamble. Would you die of disease, hunger, or at the hands of an angry mob? And if you survived, you were probably living in a state of fear and superstition. Next time you complain about slow Wi-Fi, just remember, it could be worse. You could be living a century where cats were the enemy, childbirth was Russian roulette, and the cure for everything was a jar of leeches. And if you thought living in 14th century sounded like a nightmare, don't worry. We've got plenty more stories to turn into the wildest trip you've ever been on. Literally. So hit that like button and subscribe for more twisted history, dark facts, and just the right amount of unsettling humor. And hey, if you've got that one friend who thinks they were born in the wrong era, maybe send them this video, they will thank you. Or they will reconsider their medieval daydreams real quick.